Welcome. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't just write philosophy, he declared war on it. He famously spoke of philosophizing with a hammer. Today, we pick up that tool. Our goal isn't wanton destruction, but to tap on the hollow idols of Western culture to hear which ones ring false. Are you ready to challenge the very foundations of your morality? Let's begin by striking our first target, the comfortable delusion we call progress.
Look at this modern skyline. It represents a core belief of Western thought, the comforting myth of continuous progress. We assume history is a steady march toward a safer, freer world. But Nietzsche takes a hammer to this idea. He argues this optimism is actually a dangerous delusion, blinding us to the raw violence and inequality that truly underpins reality. So if our cherished worldview is just a comforting fiction, where does this story actually come from?
If our history of progress is a delusion, what about the thinkers who defined it? Nietzsche argues there is no such thing as objective truth. He mocks the idea that we can start from first principles, claiming that even logic is often just a mask for moral prejudice. Ultimately, every great philosophy is merely the unconscious autobiography of its author. We aren't finding truth, we are rationalizing our instincts. But if our thoughts are just competing drives in disguise, is there even a unified self doing the thinking? If philosophy is just an autobiography, we have to ask, who exactly is the author? We assume there's a single rational entity called me in control. Nietzsche calls this a lie. He argues the unified self is an illusion. Instead, view your internal world as a battlefield. You are a chaos of competing drives, impulses, passions, and habits, all fighting to take the wheel of your consciousness. You aren't a solid statue, you're a swarm. But what exactly is the ultimate goal of these warring drives? That brings us to the engine of it all. If the self is just a chaotic battlefield of competing drives, what is the fuel keeping them running? Nietzsche identifies a single, biological engine behind it all, the will to power. We love to tell ourselves nice stories about our own benevolence, but beneath the surface lies a bestial need to expand and assert dominance. Ask yourself, is your charity always pure goodwill? Or are you subconsciously more likely to help someone you find attractive? If our deepest motives are this subjective, wait until you see what Nietzsche has to say about the concept of truth itself. If our primary drive is the will to power, then truth isn't something we find, it's something we create. For centuries, Western thought was haunted by Plato's idea of a single, unchanging reality. Nietzsche smashes that statue. He introduces perspectivism, the realization that concepts like justice or beauty aren't objective cosmic facts, but human inventions designed to manage chaos. We don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. But if truth is just a perspective, how do philosophers trick us into accepting theirs as the only one? So, if objective truth is dead, what have philosophers actually been doing all this time? Nietzsche argues they aren't explorers discovering facts, they are creators imposing their values. Think of philosophy as a sophisticated form of conquest. Great minds use rhetoric to seduce you into adopting their perspective, making their subjective view the dominant reality. It is the ultimate spiritual expression of the will to power. But what happens when this power is used by the weak to control the strong? Let's look at the herd.
If philosophers use rhetoric to impose their will, society uses ethics. Look at the eagle, grounded by the flock. This is what Nietzsche calls herd morality. While previous thinkers tried to rationalize why we should be kind, Nietzsche asked a dangerous question. Is morality actually a good thing? He saw traditional values as a trap designed to tame exceptional individuals, suppressing our will to power to make us harmless and docile for the sake of the group. But does this system stem from strength or resentment? Let's break that down. So how did the herd manage to villainize strength? Nietzsche argues it started with a historical split. Originally, master morality defined good as powerful, wealthy, and life-affirming, but the oppressed, fueled by a specific psychological poison called ressentiment, flipped the script. They created slave morality, where strength is suddenly labeled evil and meekness is elevated as good. This wasn't spiritual progress, it was a revenge tactic against life itself, a tactic that leads directly to the dangers of forced equality we'll look at next.
If slave morality is born of resentment, what is the cost when it actually conquers the West? You get a stifling homogeneity. Nietzsche warns that a one-size-fits-all morality, driven largely by Christianity, flattens human potential. By obsessing over equality, we inadvertently punish the independent thinker and suffocate the conditions required for genius to mature. We are trading greatness for comfort. So, amidst this cultural leveling, who has the strength to break the mold?
If the herd mentality leads to cultural decline, what is the antidote? Nietzsche doesn't leave us in the dark. Instead, he points to the sunrise over the ruins. He predicts that the collapse of old morality actually paves the way for a new, vital type of philosopher, the free spirit. These individuals are the answer to stagnation, pioneers ready to arise from the rubble and lead humanity to those greener pastures. But how exactly do they navigate this chaotic new world?
So how exactly do these individuals reverse cultural decline? Nietzsche defines the free spirit through two distinct pillars. First is self-mastery. They reject the comfort of herd morality to become the absolute commanders of their own lives, disciplining themselves strictly to their own created values. Second is perspectival playfulness. Look at the masks in this image. The free spirit treats specific ideas or eternal truths merely as costumes. They are willing to try on different ways of thinking, experimenting with perspectives without being trapped by them. But to maintain this level of freedom, one must know how to harness their primal energy.
This brings us to the ultimate mechanism of the free spirit: sublimation. We don't repress our darker animalistic drives just to fit safely into the herd. Instead, we harness that raw intensity, the will to power, and redirect it. It's about taking potentially destructive energy and chiseling it into something productive, like great art or philosophy. We become the sculptors of our own character. But to wield this hammer effectively, we must first shatter one final illusion.
Ultimately, to truly channel that creative fire we just discussed, we must stop performing for an invisible audience. Nietzsche challenges us to see moral labels for what they really are: mere costumes. These are cultural artifacts, not universal truths. So the final challenge for the free spirit is this: are you brave enough to hang up the script, leave the costumes in the closet, and create your own values? The stage is yours.